Okay, this week we're looking at some of my vintage Leica lenses. So this is part three. Remember, this is part three of the of my Leica Man in Vietnam series. So you know, like this little baby here, this is my Sumercron 50.2 50f2. You know, this is made in 1954. This was kind of the granddaddy of all the Sumercrons that are out there today. So this was a super excellent lens. So I'm going to talk about this one and the others that come along with it, as well as some third party for those who are kind of like poor man's Leica lenses. These are Voigtlanders. So I'm got a couple of those that I shall be talking with also. So stay tuned and we'll get together and talk about this. So don't go anywhere. Here I am, Vietnam. This is Camera Talk with Dr. Scott, or as we're calling this series, we're on to part three now of Leica Man in Vietnam. So this is again part three. Part one was a little bit of the history of Leica, some of the, introducing some of the stuff I've got going on here. Part two was about the bodies. I have an M9, I have an M10. Talked about those and some of the features of them and whatnot and the experience of using them. Part three, I'm going to introduce you to some of my vintage Leica lenses that I use on my M system. So I have, again, just let me go through these one by one to introduce them to you. I have a 50 millimeter f2 Sumitar, produced in 1933, and of course these are all based upon the serial numbers and whatnot. So 1933, I have a Sumitar 50 millimeter f2 produced in 1949. I have a 50 millimeter f2 Sumercron produced in 1954. I have a 28 f2.8 Elmerit produced in 1974, according to the serial number. Now, in my earlier videos, I might have mentioned this was 1979, but that was 1979, the last year of production of these things. And so these are my vintage lights or Leica lenses, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about the what's considered like the poor man's Leica lenses, just because I have them. And these are Voigtlanders made by Cosina in Japan, but they're decent lenses. They're pretty good lenses. Now, of course, they're not Leica lenses, so they're not the same quality, but when you're on a tight budget, and you just can't afford Leica glass. Let's say you've got an M body. These things will complement it. It's not, again, it's definitely not Leica glass, so I'm definitely not going to compare them, but I'm still going to give the option because this is modesty photography, and we're here to save you money and just introduce you to options. So, again, these are the 6 lenses I'm going to talk about today. Next week's episode, which should be my final episode of my Leica Man in Vietnam series, we'll talk about my current lenses, like what's on my 10 now, which is a 35 1.4 Sumelux, a spherical with the floating elements and whatnot. So I've got one of these in a 50 Sumelux and a 75 Sumerit that I'll be talking about, and those are current lenses. So these lenses blow these ones out of the water, but again, not everybody can afford these kinds of things. So I still want to show what's available on the market for those who are looking to save some money while they're using a Leica system, or just for the character. These lenses are very different from today's lenses, and they give a different rendition, and so on. And, again, they're used by a lot of people for artistic pleasures. And
I'm a fucking artist.
And again, for those who may not be able to afford the full-blown current Leica lineup, you know, I mean, just one particular lens alone is close to $6,000. Oh my God, you could buy a small car for that. But anyway, so let me get on with these. So what I'm going to do is talk about each lens, take a shot of my usual, you know, take a picture of the my Canon M50, which is filming this video right now, and then give you some, you know, photo samples from, you know, a little trip down to the garden with my wife and my wife Amy and my son Dylan, who just turned 9 months. What's today? Oh, today's the 15th. Turned 9 months old today. So anyway, good father, can't remember the monthly birthday. But anyway, so let me get on with this. Video. So first up, I'm going to go with the oldest one and work my way up the ladder. So this here is the Ernst lights, Wetzler. Just reading the inside cover. It's a Sumitar F 5 centimeter, because of course that's the way they measured back then, which is 50 millimeter equivalent. F2 with a serial number 384591, and it's a again, it was one of the first in the lights family to complement the cameras that were out there, having this kind of speed with an f2 on it. So a 50 millimeter f2 was all, you know, fancy schmancy stuff back in 1933. You know, again, this was before World War II, you know, so this thing is, you know, this thing's older than my parents. And I'm an old guy, so older than my parents. But anyway, you know, the specs on this is an f2, closes down to f12.5, which again in today's world is not that special. You know, 12.5 is no big deal. It's got pretty funky aperture blades, even though it collectively comes down to 6 aperture blades. But when you count the actual blades in there, there's quite a number of them, because they overlap each other to create 6 blades. So it's again, it's a funky design. And of course the camera's not going to be able to see that from here, so I'll show you, I'll cut in a picture of that right here. This is, again, an old lens, but in today's world, using it, you know, on my Leica here, it still renders very decent photos. Some of the specs on it, you know, it's 6 elements. The lens is uncoated, so of course it just looks like a piece of glass, which of course it isn't. You know, it's Leica glass, and it's actually manufactured purposely for the specs that it lives up to. I've been lucky to, you know, when I purchased these lenses, that very minimal wear and tear on them. So you know, when you flash, you know, the flashlight through and take a look through the lens, there are some minor cleaning marks on these. Again, being uncoated, the glass was rather soft, as you know the saying goes. So there are some, you know, tiny lines upon them from, you know, basically somebody taking their t-shirt and rubbing it in, or actually they didn't have t-shirts back then, but taking their tie or taking their jacket and cleaning the lens. So there's, you know, marks on it from that, but they're not bad. I've seen some that are, you know, pretty horrendous. But anyway, so this is the Sumitar. So I said six elements. It's uncoated. There's 6 blades. It goes from f2 to f12.5. Actually, all of these ones here, the close, well, the first 3 anyway. Your close focus distance is 1 meter. So anything closer than that, you're not going to get any focus in on it. The weight of it, you know, 176 grams. Now, again, what makes this famous, besides being the first in the 50 range of the latest, at that time, latest lights family, is the fact that it's a high contrast lens. You know, the colors are very clear. One thing it lacks is, you know, details in the shadow at that time, but they corrected those in later lenses. It's also known for its great 3D pop. You know, that's where the Leica pop kind of started, you know, way back when was this thing. And the out of focus background, you know, the bokeh, you know, has some pretty good quality to it, and it has kind of a painting effect from what people see on it, and so that's what makes it popular in that regard. So anyway, so let me take my traditional shot of my Canon here. Let me take my 35 off there, replace it with this one here. Let me find my little red dot to line up. Now again, with modern lenses, one thing you don't want to, or with modern cameras that is, these are all collapsible. These three are collapsible. You don't want to collapse them into the body just because they're designed differently than the original M cameras, the M2, the M3, and whatnot. So you know, in that regard, just keep them extended like this, and you should be good to go. So anyway, so let me get a picture of my oh, I have it, of course, I have it locked. A picture of my M50, which is filming this right now, just to show you, you know, what it would look like through this lens. All right, so 1, 2, 3. All right, so I'll show you a picture of that. And other than that, let me, you know, again, I took the family down to the garden, got some pictures of them, you know, sitting amongst the vegetation and whatnot on the little picnic bench. So, you know, again, let me get that going for you. So that was the Sumer, anyway. The Leica Sumer 50 millimeter f2. Now let me move on to the Sumitar. So now this is, you know, the follow-up to the Sumer. So this is the Sumitar, and again, 50 centimeter, which is 50 millimeter f2. Serial number 753378, and it was produced in again 1949. Started in 39, went up to the early 50s, and luckily I got the last model before they went back to a 6-blade aperture on this, a 6-bladed aperture. As I said, the Sumer was a 6-bladed aperture, and apparently, you know, as rumor has it, they found a lot of the old Sumer apertures laying around and figured, hey, we might as well use them. So they put them in the Sumitar. But I have the original one, which is a 10-bladed aperture, which obviously makes for, you know, better rounded bokeh and whatnot in that regard. So this is again the Ernst lights Wetzler 50 millimeter Sumitar, and it ranges from f2 to f16, whereas in this went up to f12.5. You know, this is a nice clean copy. Again, the glass is very clear on here. There's no cleaning marks, you know, which is one of the problems that these have had in the past. Now this is coated. It's different. This was an uncoated. This is a coated lens, single coated, of course. You know, which helped with flaring and, you know, things like this, contrast in that regard. But again, it goes from f2 to f16. As I said earlier, these three, the close focus distance is 1 meter. It's a little heavier than this one. It's 206 grams. So it's, you know, again, a little kind of like the bigger brother to this one. And when I mean bigger, I mean bigger.
That's what she said.
And it's sharper, of course. You know, it's one of the qualities of this thing. It's sharper than this one, and it's got better color, and it's actually comparable. You know, that's again to the claim to fame of the Sumitar is very comparable to the Sumercron and the 1.5 Sumerit, which came out, you know, roughly around the same time frame when these were out. So this was, you know, for lack of a better phrase, a damn good lens. You know, the bang for the buck, so to speak. It's 7 elements in 4 groups. You know, again, so it's constructed differently than the Sumar. So it's actually moving into current lens construction, you know, formulas and whatnot as it comes up with that in that regard. So it's got, you know, the one thing this lacked was the detail in the shadows. Well, this made up for it. This one's actually very good with the detail in the shadows. So it's a decent lens. And again, let me get a picture of my M50. Let me find my little red dot. Get that loaded on here for you. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. Click. Always wait for that click. So, all right, same thing. Let me get, again with these range finders. And again, I've got it locked. Again, with rangefinders, very different from SLRs. You're not actually looking through the lens. You're looking through a viewfinder and matching up the overlapping rectangle. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, so we take a picture of the lens through the lens of the Sumerit. So let me take that off. And we move along now. So that was, again, that was the 50.2 f2 Sumerit. And we move on to the Sumercron. Now Sumercron, which is the granddaddy of today's Sumercron, which is their sharpest lens of all time. Some say it's the sharpest lens ever made, today's version anyway. But this is the Sumercron. This is back in 1954, back when they were first developing these babies. And again, got myself a nice clean copy. Bought this one from a gentleman in the Ukraine who had obviously taken good care of his Sumercron, and he was willing to sell it to me for a decent price. And again, much more economical than today's Sumercrons, which are thousands and thousands of dollars. So again, this one, 1954. The construction of it, 4 elements in 4 groups, 10 blades. Again, you know, it has great looking bokeh. The quality of the out of focus background, or bokeh, as some people prefer to call it. It's one thing with photography, you know, everybody has their own version of how they want to say it. And no matter how you say it, you're wrong. According to the photo snobs, you're wrong. And they'll point it out in the comments and everything else and whatnot. So anyway, 10 blades, F2 to F16, just like my Sumitar here. It's 220 grams. And as I already said, the close focus is 1 meter. Now it's got really great out of focus backgrounds. Again, it's one of the things that made these things, you know, popular for what they were, for things like separating your subject, you know, for portraiture and whatnot, having that background melt away or look like a Matisse painting. Great out of focus background, saturated colors. It's kind of what you would consider maybe a warm to neutral lens, and then as far as lenses are concerned. So again, let me get you a photo sample of what's going on here. Now, actually, this just to share with you too, the my Sumercron here is the first one that's actually M mount. These two here are 39 millimeter screw mount, and I had to obviously get an adapter to put them on my M. But the Sumercron here is actually made as an M mount. So anyway, let me unlock again since it's locked. So I learned my lesson after the first two. And as you can see, when you use an M camera, it's not that quick to focus, but still, when you practice at it, you actually get it fairly quickly. I just want to make sure it's accurate for this video. So here we go, 1, 2, 3. All right, so I'll put that up right now. Along with the photos of the family in the garden downstairs. So that was that was the my family of vintage lights lenses, or Leica lenses. Let me put that, lock it back up again. Actually, I should do that with these two, just to keep them from moving from side to side here. This one's locked up already. All right. As you tell, I like to mumble a lot, talking to myself. All right, so let me move on now to the my 28. So this is the Elmerit 28 millimeter f2.8. And this was back through Leica's history, where they actually moved out of moved their manufacturing anyway out of Germany and to Canada.
Good day. How's it going?
My home country. So it's a little bit of home here. This is again it's a 28 millimeter f2. Serial number 2524233, and as I mentioned, in earlier videos made in 1979, but that's when they actually stopped this version. This is version 2. Version 2 is known for its center sharpness in the center part of the frame, and then the edges tend to get soft on the edges. So what it's famous for is great for close-ups. Anything below 10 meters, it's excellent for. Beyond 10 meters, it gets a little unsharp, and that's why it wasn't popular, obviously, with landscapers and whatnot, taking grander photos of things. But I'm a portraiture guy. I love taking pictures of people, and so this is ideal for that, getting close up on people and getting that 28 millimeter field of view. But it's 8 elements in 6 groups, 8 aperture blades. Its close focus distance is a little shorter than these guys, 70 millimeters, or 70 centimeters, so 0.70 of meters, 300 grams. Again, it's brass, coated enamel, black enamel on the brass. It's 2.8 to f22, and it's as I said, it's great for portraiture, great for close focus, and which is my thing. I'm a people shooter, so and I don't mean people shooter with a camera. So anyway, let me get you a shot of my my M50 here. Again, ready, 1, 2, 3, boom. Again, because being a wider angle, it's a lot faster to focus in on that. So this is the shot of the M50. I didn't do didn't actually take this down to the garden with me, so I'll show you a picture of my son Dylan. But anyhow, that is the F28. The F28. The 28 millimeter f2.8 lights Elmerit. Now, of course, today's Elmerit, you know, the spherical Elmerit that was produced in more recent years, is a lot sharper than this. It's a super excellent lens. Outrageous. But just like I went on about the $6,000 thing, you know, today's 28 is very similar to that. You know, this is a 35. This is like the greatest lens they've ever made. This is excellent, excellent, excellent. But you got to wait till next video to talk about that one. All right, so those were my vintage lights, Leica lenses. Now let me move on to my poor man's version that, you know, people will use on their Leicas just because they're mounted with M mounts. So these are Voigtlanders, and you know, Voigtlander puts out a decent product. They're not Leica products, but they're decent. They're decent products. So using them on your M camera, on your M system, you know, there's a lot of arguments about, oh, why are you wasting your M body using such lenses, but they're decent. You know, they're not great, but they're decent. So anyway, so this is the Voigtlander 35 f1.4, and it is the Nocton Classic SC. Actually, let me get rid of this lens cover here. You know, even though it's a B&W UV lens, I still not a big fan of using those. I'd rather, you know, give the lens its opportunity to shine without it. So anyway, this is the Nocton Classic SC, and the SC is for single coated. And basically what this baby is designed for is for black and white photography with the single coating. You know, it allows in more just natural light that the camera can utilize for black and white photography. So anyway, all right, so the Nocton Classic XSC for single coated is 8 elements in 6 groups. We have 10 aperture blades in both of these Voigtlanders. The close focus distance is the same as this guy, which is 0.7. Oh no, sorry, same as this guy, 0.7 meters, and the weight of the actual lens itself is only 200 grams, so it's not that heavy. Yeah, so let me get you a shot now of the 35 and what it looks like taking a picture of my Canon M50. 1, 2, 3. All right, and it's wide open at f4. So as I say, you know, taking pictures in the garden. I do have a photo of the family in the garden with the Voigtlander, but I did it in black and white, and I used my M9 actually at the time that happened to be down there, because I don't use this lens, you know, very often at all. So so I'm going to add that in right here. And then last on my list, actually let me put my lens cover back on here. Protect it from the elements and fingerprints and all the other things that come along with that. My last one is my 75 millimeter Voigtlander, f1.8. They don't make this anymore. Actually, all of these they don't make anymore. But you know, now they make a I think it's a 1.5, if I'm not mistaken. The Voigtlander's latest version of the 75. But this one's 1.8. And, you know, if you talk to a lot of people on the internet, well, not that you talk to them, but if you read a lot of things they post on the internet about the 75, is that this version is actually better than the latest version. So this is the Heliar Classic, and you know, they really shouldn't have stopped making this, because it is it's an excellent lens. You know, it's you know, the 75 is a simplistic construction. So it's 6 elements in 3 groups. Still 10 aperture blades, as with the 35. You know, its close focus is almost like these guys, which are at a meter. This one's 0.9 of a meter. So 90 centimeters is your close focus on that. But again, it's 75 millimeter lens. So you're not expected to get that close anyway. And it's 427 grams. It's great portrait lens. You know, it's super for, again, the subject separation with the out of focus background. You know, it's got some great bokeh or bokeh. You know, for landscape and all other kinds of stuff, may not be the greatest thing, but as a portrait lens, which is my thing, I shouldn't hit the microphone when I'm doing that, which is my cup of tea. This is perfect for me and my use. So here's a picture of Dylan that I took with this lens. And let me get you a picture of the camera with, again, a shot of my M50 with the 75 here. And one thing that's very different than the other lenses as well is there's no finger tab on this, so you're actually focusing the old-fashioned way, which is grabbing the lens and, you know, turning it to focus. I've ordered some finger tabs off of the internet, so hopefully they'll show up, and then I can, you know, glue them on there, and away we go. And I can treat this just as I do with the others. So anyway, so that is the 75 Heliar Classic, 75 millimeter f1.8, and you know, this was my my video on using vintage as well as you know, third-party lenses for your Leica M system. Now again, my recommendation for the Voigtlanders, you know, if obviously you're on a budget and you can't afford the Leica lenses, then, you know, go with them if you want modern lenses. But even these ones, you know, which are 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, they're still great lenses to use, and they compare to these guys and can actually perform better than the modern lenses. So again, Voigtlanders are a great option for you to consider for your Leica. But again, if you're going to spend big money on your Leica, then get out there and spend big money on your lenses too. You know, because again, the body is one thing. The body doesn't last forever, but these do. You know, the quality of the lenses, you know, can't really be compared with anything else. And as I said, you know, these ones are older than my grandparents, and yet, well, my parents. I guess my grandparents might be a little. They were maybe kids when this thing was made, but still.
At least we're not fucking idiots.
You know, if you're going to go out and spend the money on Leica M system than spend the money on the lenses, you know, that accompany it, and you know, don't cheap out with Voigtlanders and others like that. As good as Voigtlander is for the Leica M system, my recommendation is just, you know, as best you can, try and get yourself actual lenses designed for the camera itself. So this was Camera Talk with Dr. Scott. That's all I've got for you this week, you know, talking about vintage lenses and alternative lenses for the M system. There's other rangefinder lenses, you know, from Russia, the Jupiters and whatnot, that you could also mount on here and use them as long as you get an M mount adapter. But still, you know, again, if you're going to go out and spend all this kind of money on an M camera, get yourself some M lenses to go with it. So this was, again, Modesty Photography, looking to save you money, teach you a thing or two about what you may or may not know already. So, you know, that was this week's episode. You know, so of course, like every other video I have, the last thing I want to really emphasize is that I need you to subscribe to help support my channel. So please subscribe, and for a double sake, subscribe. Lastly, give me a thumbs up, because it gives me the excuse to give you the thumbs up, girls, and here they are. Aren't they cute? And the last thing I want to mention is also, you know, obviously if you're a photographer, you're probably using some sort of editing software, and if you're not, you know, or if you're into the Lightroom thing and you're, you know, sick of paying out all this kind of money, a great alternative that I use myself is Luminar. You know, Luminar and Luminar AI, they're standalone products. They have one price tag. You know, it's like $57 or $67 or whatever. You have a link below in the description you can click on, save yourself $10. And hey, why not for that kind of price? You get all the bells and whistles that the other programs do. And, you know, it's yours for life. You know, you keep it. You don't have to upgrade if you don't want to pay an extra $10 or $20 here and there to upgrade to something new. You just keep it, and that's it. You just use it forever and ever. Amen. So go for it. And it, you know, I get a little kickback to that too. Yay, a little extra money for the teacher. So anyway, well, this was Dr. Scott, Camera Talk, and Leica Man in Vietnam. So stay tuned for next week when I get into the current lenses, you know, like my 35 aspherical Sumilux 1.4 here. Excellent, excellent, excellent lens.
Swing.
So yeah, you can't wait till next week, right, to check out this baby. You know, it's worth every penny. So anyway, so come back next week. Stay safe. Stay away from that COVID, and you know, hopefully we can get together and again explore the world of Leica and the system. So thanks for dropping by, and I'll see you next week. All right, take care. Bye bye.
Here I am, Vietnam. Rain is always coming.